What is going on, guys? We are back with another State of the Franchise episode. Jason, we started this when the team was felt like in perils. What's the state of the franchise now? Now we're like 4 or 5 episodes into this. What's the state of the franchise right now?
It's a lot more optimistic and owning bozos like myself who were ready to throw themselves off a bridge right after the Arizona game and everything. So,
I was
you
ready
know,
too.
for the overreactions, this guy own me for that. So,
Hey, but we got Spicy Aponte from that, and Spicy Aponte will live on forever. I'm hyped, man. Thank you for joining me. We had a great game against the Jags. That's two in a row. That's two in a row. Um, and seemingly though, you know, Kyle Shanahan still gets asked on the pretty much on the daily about Trey Lance, when we're going to see Trey Lance. I don't know if we're ever going to see him, but just tell me about Jimmy Garoppolo, how he performed against the Jags. I'm sure there's still things that he can tighten up a little bit, but just tell me overall, just how you're feeling about the quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers right now.
I mean, he's being efficient. The team's winning games. You really can't ask for anything more than that. I mean, when you have the formula the way that it is right now, and obviously, I don't think this is something that's very sustainable in my eyes. Right? You can't run the ball 40 times. Game script's not going to allow that, and teams are just not going to allow that. I mean, if you do, that's great. But right now, he's executing the offense. He's making the throws that he needs to make. This team has won two in a row, and it's four straight very solid games, and there's nothing more that you can ask. And the one thing that Kyle Shanahan has said every single time that has been pretty much consistent is as long as this team's winning ball games and they're not mathematically eliminated, that it's going to be Jimmy Garoppolo, and that's what's happening right now. And for the people that said, "Hey, well, why wasn't Trey Lance thrown in there a little bit earlier?" Man, he was going to hand the ball off another 25 times. I'm not really too certain you were going to get too many reps that way. So, yeah, I mean, at this point, it is what it is, and as long as Jimmy keeps playing this way and the team keeps winning his game, it's going to take a little bit longer for to the Trey Lance experience to begin.
Absolutely. And I think as long as the 49ers are winning, we can wait. I have no problems. So let's stick on the offensive side of the football. Actually, before we get into that, let's get into some of the administration stuff. There were some moves today. It
Hmm.
sounds like D Ford and Dre Greenlaw are coming back. What are your initial thoughts on those two specific moves? Do you think Dre Greenlaw comes back right into the starting role? How do you think D Ford fits in? What's the vibe with that?
I mean, I don't know if Drake Greenlaw immediately starts right back up, but what it does do is give depth, and that's depth is wealth at this point, especially now that we're getting into the teens of the season as well too. So Tart came back last week, and Hufanga didn't necessarily get into his snaps; they just had them on the field all three times. So Tart had 40 snaps, Hufanga had 15, and it was more about just getting them on the field, putting your best players on the field, but depth as well. So there's not a problem with any of those guys coming back. And if D Ford can be anything what we saw in camp or anywhere near some sort of pressure, because no disrespect to Arden Key, I don't want to hear that Arden Key is the second best pass rusher behind Nick Bosa on this line. That's not necessarily what you want to hear. So if D Ford can give them a lift there as well, because I'm not as worried about the secondary in this Vikings game as I am if you can't get to Kirk Cousins. I'm more worried about the pass rush. So that's a welcome sight. If he can get in on obvious passing downs and put some pressure on Kirk Cousins, then it's a win for this defense and this team.
Absolutely. And I think the package that they use, I'm not positive. I believe it's called the NASCAR package
Hmm.
where they
Turbo
basically get
NASCAR.
100%, where they get all the speed rushers on the line of scrimmage. I like Arden Key over that guard spot, but it's really nice to be able to get D Ford and put D Ford back on the edge spot because we know how impactful a healthy D Ford is. So hopefully he brings a spark. And the whole thing with Dre Greenlaw, Aziz Al-Shaair, it's going to be a huge bump regardless to get both of them back, to see them all on the field. Kind of like what we saw too with Jaquist Tart, Talano Hufanga again. Kyle Shanahan came out, made a little bit of a stink, but when the you really had to look at the situation and how it played out. I think you even posted the snap total of them, and I think I have it right here. But I believe right,
40.
Jaquiski Tart played four. Go for it. This is
Yeah,
from
40.
you, so go
Yeah,
for it.
40 defensive snaps. I believe it's 4 special team snaps, and it was 15 and 15 or 15 and 16 for
Mhm.
Talanoa Hufanga. So yeah, it was more about obviously Tart knows the defense better, but it's still the idea of get your best players on the field and put them together and find a way to make it work. And that's what D'Amico did.
Absolutely. So hopefully we see something kind of like that along the same lines with Aziz Al-Shaair and Dre Greenlaw. Obviously, it's an embarrassment of riches at this point. So hopefully we get all those guys on the field playing at the same time and doing all that good stuff. But here we are heading into week 12. Who has been the best player on the offense for you uh throughout this this season so far?
You know the answer, and he's been the
I
best
do.
offensive player right now, probably in the NFL at this point. And I mean, aside from Jonathan Taylor, but it's Deebo Samuel. And this is the thing. I was posting some of his stats, and I think that the stats, when you contextualize them with how he gets the ball and how he's used, I think it really speaks more volumes. What I mean by that is he leads the league in yards per touch, which at 15.9, with Justin Jefferson right behind him at 14.4. But what I mean by that is there's so many times that he gets the ball behind the line of scrimmage. And for him to be able to keep that number afloat in that way, tunnel screens, uh, handoffs, jet sweeps, all of those things, for him to be that good this long, man, I mean, he's just been a joy to watch. Now, he didn't get to 1,000 yards. He had one catch in this game, but his impact was felt. He was the best running back on the field, the most efficient running back on the field. He had a better day than Jeff Wilson and Trey Sermon. And I mean, what else can you say about Deebo Samuel except put my guy in the discussion for the quarterback award, aka the MVP, but
The
put him in the
quarterback award.
but put him in the discussion, man. At least talk about him
Yep.
because where would this team be without him? Truthfully, where would this team be without him? And that, to me, defines most valuable.
I agree because out of all the ups and downs from this offense, and we've gone back and forth at length, right, about what are the issues, why aren't they functioning? Throughout that entire process, there was one person who was functioning and functioning at a really high level amidst all the dysfunction, and it was Deebo Samuel, and he's continued to put up tons of production. You alluded to it. I think he's 6 yards away from
Yep.
getting that 1,000-yard mark, which he probably would have got if they played him as a wide receiver primarily, but he did most of his work as a running back. What did you see from Deebo? The way he ran through the lanes. What did you see as a runner? Like, do you see this guy as someone who can potentially kind of we see positionless players on defense and things like that. Could you see that mold kind of make its way to the offensive side if guys like Deebo Samuel continue to perform like they're performing?
In a pinch, it's obvious that he can be called on. I mean, he had 8 rushes, and they weren't trying to do anything that was sneaky. It was literally Debo Samuel's in the backfield and hand it off, and he's reading his blocks. He hits the hole fast, and he's cutting through it. And I mean, that is kind of what they've been missing with Raheem Mostert on the outside is his ability to not only hit the hole but have that vision to see it develop. And I think that that's what Debo's doing so well, and that's why you understand what they're talking about the Yak Bros and everything. It's about vision and being able to see where you're going with it and being able to not only see it but being able to put your foot in the ground and execute it. So in a pinch, obviously that's not really where you want to use him. But yes, the idea of positionless football is something that is big for Kyle Shanahan, lining guys up wherever, causing mismatches. I mean, I watched the tape and there was a play, the Jeff Wilson play, the one that they ran mesh, and obviously Jimmy
Mhm.
Garoppolo misses. But Brandon Ayuk has got his hand in the ground, and the defense is looking at each other like, "What on earth are we doing?" And then that's
Like
why
a
the cross,
3-point stance?
yeah, and it's like,
Really?
it's like, my goodness, man, what are
I
you
didn't
like?
see that. I'm gonna have to get the timestamp of that. I
Yeah,
didn't see that. I want to go
yeah.
see.
Like,
I'll
why?
come back to that.
What are you doing, man? Like now you're just and like the Jaguars are looking around like not only are they sucking wind because they've been on the field for 22 plays, but now you got Brandon Ayuk in a tight end stance, and it's just like and they run mesh, and then Jeff Wilson's running wide open. Obviously, it doesn't get converted, but that's kind of the creativity and the way that we're talking about positionless football. So I implore you to go ahead and check that out because I was blown away by that. Like, man, Kyle Shanahan's like, all right, I'm definitely messing with people now.
Absolutely. Now I want to go back. We'll catch up offline. I know you give me the marker,
I
and I
got
want to
you.
go. I want to go see that because that's wild. I don't know. I don't know if I've ever seen that, at least until from like the 1980s or something like that.
Right.
But continuing with the offense and the way they're continuing to progress, the offense had the football for 38 minutes, opposed to the Jaguars 21. Is this the recipe for success for the rest of the year? What do you kind of gain from that specific um stat, I guess, which is time of possession?
So that's really what they want to do, right? Like they want to do that, but I don't know if that's something that you can always do. But it's always good for them to find their identity because I thought well, many of us believed that this was the 49ers team that was going to come out week one, and this is how they were going to get things done, right? Run, and put Jimmy Garoppolo in advantageous spots and have him be the third down machine that he's been the last few weeks. And that's really what he was in 2019. But you have to stay ahead of the sticks. You can't find yourselves in 3rd and 11, 3rd and 9. This team had one penalty in this game, and it was in garbage time. So all of that stuff has kind of cleaned itself up. Sometimes it takes things to sort itself out a little while longer. I know we were frustrated because it shouldn't take that long, but hey, here we are, 5-5, most important game of the season right in front of you. If there was ever a game that's a playoff game in a regular season, this is it right here. So, I mean, them figuring it out is a good thing. And I think it's something that teams need to be worried about because I still feel like there's another gear to this offense that they still haven't hit yet. And we all know the goal is obviously to win a Super Bowl, but the goal should always be to just get in the tournament. And what I mean by that is the outright favorite, usually isn't the one that goes on to win it. It's usually the team that figures it out and is hot going into the tournament. And that's all you really need to be. Like for a long time last year, the Bucs didn't look like a team that you thought were just going to go ahead and run roughshod through everybody and go ahead and win the Super Bowl. But when they got it figured out and it all clicked, obviously it helps to have the GOAT quarterback there. That helps. But at the same time, there's many examples of teams who have just kind of figured it out at the right time, got in the tournament, and became horrible to deal with. You know that term, team that nobody wants to play? The 49ers should be that team that nobody wants to see on the other side, and that really should be the goal. Never mind the records, never mind where the game's played. If you have the 49ers and they come up in the playoffs, if that's the case, you should be that team that everybody says, man, we want to stay away from them because we want no parts of that.
Absolutely. And the 49ers are definitely trending towards that direction. Excuse me.
Mhm.
When you saw when you saw the drive to start the game and that came out and ended up being the longest drive since I believe 1997, but they ended
Mhm.
it with a field goal. What was your whole I wanna know your thought process, I'll tell you
Okay.
mine, because we were doing the
Mhm.
live and while it was going on, but what was your thought process of Kyle going for a field goal there rather than going for the first down, which he could have gotten, not just the touchdown?
Before I get into that, I sent you the tweet with the play. Akash actually had it, and I found it, so I sent it to you so you could take a look. It's definitely got Brandon Ayuk in a 3 point
Beautiful.
stance. Yeah. Okay. So, but in terms of that, I didn't like it. I didn't like it. But I understand the thought process, right? You don't want there to be a chance of you having the ball for that long and you don't walk away with 0 points. But here's my argument against that. Two things. One, if you can't get 1 yard, we've got a problem. Got a problem. 1 yard. Got a problem. But here's the other thing. Were you worried that the Jacksonville Jaguars were going to get the ball from the night and go 99 and take it all the way back down on you? I mean, even if you don't get it there, they literally went 3 and out and they gave the ball right back. And that's when I knew the game was over. 22 plays you're on the field. Obviously, 20 only count because the penalties, whatever. But I knew the game was over after that. That defense literally was on the sideline for 25 seconds, went right back, and they were back on the field. And I was like, this is it. It's done now. So that's it. That's my point, right? It's two things. One, finish that drive with a touchdown. Get in there and get a yard. And you've been setting the precedent all game, right? This is our line of scrimmage. So make it happen. Get it. Jimmy Garoppolo is great with these QB sneaks. Push them around a little bit more. Get that touchdown. And if you don't get it, there's almost a 0% chance that the Jacksonville Jaguars go 99 yards on you for a touchdown. So that's the part that made me a little upset. Obviously, it's a moot point because the 49ers won by how much they won by. But that was like, I was just like, come on, Kyle. Go for it right there on fourth, man. Like you literally put the Rams away, 4th and 6, whatever it was, and you stepped on their neck. 4th and 1 right there, with a chance to score. You gotta punch that in. So I would have liked to have seen him go for it. But hey, no harm, no foul. That's it, man.
Absolutely. And like Tommy said, we understand that there is a motto in football that exists. Coaches will preach it and scream it into your face. You just don't leave points on the board. So when there's an opportunity to get points, you talked about it. Maybe they don't, but what's the flip side to that? Oh, Jaguars have to drive 99 yards down the field to score a touchdown. Maybe that's probably not gonna happen. But I agree. I was a little upset. I think the team was a little upset. I think they wanted to go for it. Just like anyone, just like us as fans, when we watch, when they're on the field and they're driving and they're moving the ball and it's 1 yard. And even if, like you talked about the quarterback sneak, Jimmy Garoppolo has been pretty darn successful with that. But not only just Jimmy Garoppolo, Alex Mack has a great technique for getting those tough yards. And he does the submarine move and he does it every single time. They did it later in the game. I think that they got like 3 or 4 yards off of it. It's the same concept.
Yeah.
So I felt confident that they would have gotten it if they attempted, but I digress. It's a moot point, just like you said. Like they get the ball back and they score. The game's 31-10. It's a wrap. But overall, just some of those things. Obviously, um, we do look at some of the aggression and also some of the tactful play calling from Kyle Shanahan. Those are one of the things we understand both sides of it. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter because they won. So it is what it is. But we've kind of been talking about wide receivers. So let's throw another little wrinkle into the mix. 49ers signed Devin Funches this week. Is that a Mohamed Sanu thing, you think? Or what do you think why are the 49ers signing Mohamed Sanu? They just released Austin Watkins Jr. from the practice squad. What are your thoughts about that?
I don't know. Kyle just seems to love this big slot idea,
He
But
does.
hey, but you know what though? Jawan Jennings is making it so hard to get him off of the field because of the way that he blocks at this point. So I
Yes.
mean, I guess it's okay to just have him there, but man, if you're telling me that you could have brought Devin Funches in, why on God's earth didn't you put John Brown, who played in this game for the Jacksonville Jaguars, off of their practice squad on there, who can give you much more? Listen, don't disrespect the Devin Funches. He's an NFL player. I'm just a guy standing in front of a bunch of Batman stuff. So I'm talking, right? But come on, man. Like, he's not it. And it's not something that, like, I had someone on Twitter, and no disrespect again, I'm not trying to be a jerk, but it's a
Right, we're
low
having
risk,
fun.
low risk, high reward. I was like, high reward? What on earth is the high reward? With Devin Funches was on his couch, man. Like, trust me, he is gonna make no impact. I didn't get that one at this point. So it's like, yeah, for me, there was plenty of guys for them to go get to put and stash on the practice squad when things weren't going so well with Brandon Ayuk, whatever it was, when he was going through his. And it's like, man, you could have had Smokey Brown, and Smokey Brown got a target.
Oh,
Smokey Brown got a target in this Jacksonville game, and a tear ran down my eye. And I was just like, come
oh
on, man.
man.
Much more explosive, has been productive much longer. I don't want to hear the whole wash stuff, because if John Brown's washed, what on earth is Devin Funches?
John Brown's problem is he's not above the 6'2" threshold, so he
Right,
doesn't
that's
fit
what I'm
the big
saying.
slot role.
It's like, look, Kyle, I mean, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go walk by the facility when they're gonna be like, and Kyle's gonna be like, who the hell is that guy?
Well, they're gonna see you. They're gonna see that you're 6'5", and they're like, "Hey, can he play big slot? Hey, you might actually get signed walking around Kyle over there, boy."
I'm not playing though. He's gonna be like, get in the game. I'm gonna be like, hell no. What the hell's wrong with you? I'll sign to the practice squad, but don't you dare call my phone.
Don't you dare! Don't you
They're gonna
dare!
be calling like Jason Aponte gets promoted. I'm gonna send them the voicemail like, I'm not going, man. He's not gonna like my
Oh my
blocking.
god!
He's not gonna like the fact that
No,
he won't like my blocking.
he's not gonna like the blocking technique, but he will like the hand, the length, the size. It's all there. But Jason's gonna send you direct to voicemails.
Yeah.
It's just hilarious.
Shanahan's gonna like you pick up the damn phone. I'll be like, no hablo inglés, señor.
No hablo inglés. Wrong number, my guy.
Wrong
I'm
number, man.
sorry.
Just keep me on the practice squad and send me that $12,000 every week, man.
Exactly. I'll run scout team, but don't put me out there in live.
No pads.
No pads. My goodness, such good stuff. The Yak Bros, man. Deep. Well, we've already kind of touched on them a little bit, but we saw 47% of the offensive yardage come from 3 players: Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel. All 3 had 1 touchdown. Can you see that type of production even going further? You hit on it a little bit earlier about how it still feels like this offense is, they're doing better, but it still feels like they could go even further. I mean, if you look at the kind of differential between passing and rushing, they only had 162 yards passing, 171 rushing. Do you think there's more room for explosive plays?
Yeah, there's one more gear. There is one more gear, definitely. Downfield shots, and obviously a lot of that has to do with pass protection. And I think it should be important for us to talk about what happened at right tackle. Not to be a Debbie Downer, but the things that we kind of feared now are a little, yeah, straight into the doghouse. And then right after I tell Shanahan that Wayne's not the GOAT, that's it. I'm right in the doghouse.
You're done.
I'm
You're
gone.
done.
I'm gone.
That's
But
hilarious.
but yeah, I think that there is a little bit. I think there is another gear that this offense can have, right? And it's off of play action, deep down downfield shots with Ayuk, and with the way that the offense is now ascending and the way that Brandon Ayuk has put together the games that we thought that he could. Deebo Samuel has been the rock of this offense. The one crazy thing right now for me, this is the stat that I was like blown away when I was looking through because I started to go through the splits. This season, George Kittle has 3 targets in the red zone, 3 completions, 15 yards, 3 touchdowns. Incredible. Imagine that. The first time in his career that he's had touchdowns in 3 consecutive games. And you imagine throwing the ball to him in the red zone and having that work. And I think that it's just one more gear that this offense has. And I think that a little bit of what you saw this week was Jeff Wilson was okay. Trey Sermon was fine. Deebo Samuel was the best running back, but they weren't really gashing the Jaguars. Like, it was more just, we are going to keep ourselves in position where we can get you on third down, whether it's 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2, whatever. We can pick that up with the pass. That's fine. But there's still a little bit of room there. But that's where Elijah Mitchell comes in. There's still one more gear to this offense, I think. And it's going to have to happen in a game where maybe the defense doesn't step up. Maybe the running game isn't as potent. You're going to have to be able to throw the ball down the field in certain games. And that's what I mean. There's one more gear.
Absolutely. And I hope we see that gear coming up against the Vikings because that will be the perfect time for it to really come out. Hopefully we're right there, but it might be we might be stuck in neutral a little bit because you did point to kind of the lack of big runs. Jeff Wilson was able to do what he could. Honestly, I went back and watched the tape. There just wasn't a lot for him to run through. He was making the most of his opportunities, but there really weren't a ton. What was your thoughts of the right side of that offensive line? Obviously, we know there's a rotation. It started with Jalen Moore. It moved to Tom Compton. What were some of your takeaways and the things that you saw from the right side?
It's a little bit of what we kind of thought, and it's not feared. Jalen Moore was moving over to right tackle. We didn't really get a good look at him in the Rams game because he wasn't in the game for long, but he was taking his lumps a little bit, just a little bit, in terms of not picking up stunts, the protections, not understanding where to go with the blitzes and things like that, and where to pick up. And it was showing. It was showing. Now, obviously, it doesn't matter because the game was won how it was won, but it was a little concerning to me that Tom Compton came into that game. And what I mean by that is, look, it's one thing for everybody to scream, hey, anybody's better than McGlinchey. Now you're seeing it. That's not true at all. Now, everybody can say winning mass everything is the best deodorant. That's fine. But what if that is going to end up being something? That has to be a concern going forward, right? And I'm not glad that this is happening because I want the kids to succeed. But it's more about, it's not plug and play. You literally can't just flip a guy from left tackle to right tackle and call it a day and say he can do it. No, man. Like, look, Penei Sewell was somebody who was moved early in his NFL career from a spot where this is an all-world talent, Penei Sewell, all-world talent. He struggled. It's not that easy. So that was kind of showing up. He wasn't understanding the stunts, the protection, the scat protection, not getting over in time, and that kind of showed up for them to say, hey, man, all right, you've done enough today. Let's sit you down. We need to get Tom Compton in there just to protect. And I think you pointed it out in some tweets. It was like a 2 or 3 play stretch, man, where Jimmy Garoppolo was hung out to dry, and he could have taken some shots. He got rid of the ball, hung in there, did his thing. But that is going to be something that you need to keep an eye on because, say what you want about Mike McGlinchey. He never missed games, but he never gave up pressures that way. And him and Brunskill understood stunts. They understood who to pass it off to. And I think you can elaborate a little bit more on that.
Yeah, it was just it was something that I think we had higher hopes for, I would say, about Jalen Moore. I think, we talked about it. We talked about it on the last state of the franchise that if he was going to go to that right side, that there would be lumps and there would be bruises that would occur for the same exact things that you've pointed out. Just lack of communication and continuity. It's not hard. It's really hard to move these guys across the offensive line. Guys like Brunskill make it look easy because he was forced to learn every position as a fringe guy. That's how he made rosters in this league. But when you have a guy like Jalen Moore who's been a left tackle and you put him on the right side, and the thing that he's good at is pass protection, and he begins to struggle there, that's when it starts to become a little bit of a red flag. And that's why, I know Shanahan, I love Shanahan for what he said. He didn't come out and say it was a benching. He didn't come out and say he prefaced it kind of before the game, we're going to play both tackles and see what it was. But let's call it what it is. Jalen Moore got benched on the last drive before before halftime. That's not how you operate, and you work guys in. If the guys played the entire second half and you want Compton to come play the second half, then he starts the second half. He doesn't start the last drive of the first half. He got benched, and I understand why he got benched. And just like you talked about, it was miscommunications with Brunskill on stunts. It was crazy. Like I broke it down on Twitter, and we broke it down yesterday. But again, just to see them trying to pass off a stunt and it not work, and then knowing the Brunskill being the veteran had to make the call in a scoring position to say, we're not passing off the stunt. We're ISOing this. We're going to go one-on-one. I'm going to give you a hip check, but that's all we got, because they don't have the communication and the continuity to be able to do that. That was where I was like, oh my goodness. And then as you keep going through the tape, that they scored, right? I think it was George Kittle, not positive, but that very next drive to close out the half, it was Tom Compton. And the offense actually started to move pretty well with Tom Compton in,
Mm-hmm.
because unfortunately with Jalen Moore, he does struggle in the run game. Again,
Yeah.
same conversations that I get asked all the time. Put him at right guard. Put him at right guard. I'm just like, he's not a guard. He's a very good pass blocking tackle on the left side. Now he's relearning on the right side while having to learn how to play with. Like, there's so much against Jalen Moore right now. So we're not dumping on the kid, but I would personally think that I can't believe I'm saying this. It should be Tom Compton until we get a couple more solid maybe weeks of Jalen repping it on the right side. What are your thoughts?
So, I mean, I think that you touched on a very important point in saying that Shanahan didn't come right out and say it was a benching, anything like that, whatever. Handle it behind the scenes. Good. Lie to us. I don't care about that, honestly.
Right.
At this point, though, you have to be able to go back to him. So you don't want to shatter his confidence in a public eye, right? If you take him behind the scenes and you show him the tape and say, hey, listen, this is what we're going to work on all week. This is what we're going to work on. This is what you need to understand. And that's why, look, we dump on Tom Compton because it's funny, right? And everything as well. But he understands the offense. He knows the calls and everything. And there's plenty of times where Brunskill's like literally pointing, like while he's trying to block somebody, pointing, like telling Moore, like, go get, like, and obviously, and if you hesitate within half a second, that person's by you already. And that was what was happening. So I like the fact that he didn't come out and call it a benching, but we know what it was. We even had somebody reach out to us on Twitter, say, well, why is nobody talking about Moore playing better than McGlinchey? I was like, he got benched. So that's really not what happened, really. So, I mean, look, you still have to be able to go back to the kid. If he's got some things to learn, let him work through it. Show him the film. Work on it in practice, because you still might have to go back to him. You can't shatter the kid's confidence, and you can't just put him on the sideline right now, because there are no better options at this point. If they want to start Tom Compton in this game, that's fine. I'm not against it, but because this is a playoff game, they probably will do that, but I wouldn't be upset if they went back to Moore. Danielle Hunter's not playing in this game. Obviously, we know what's going on with Everson Griffin, and shout out to him. I hope everything is good with him, and I hope that his mental state right now is good. That's bigger than football. But call it what it is. the pass rush isn't going to be as ferocious for the Minnesota Vikings. So this still might be a learning opportunity while putting him in positions to win. You can still carve up the game plan the same way that you've been doing it, with quick throws and not pushing anything really down the field. If you can run the ball, you can protect the kid while giving him valuable reps. So it may be Tom Compton because it's too important of a game, and maybe Kyle Shanahan doesn't want to mess around with it, and he's starting to think how we are. Hey, let's take some shots downfield. Justin Jefferson and Thielen, they've got some firepower over there. Those guys are going to be able to put up points. You're not going to shut out the Vikings. But at the same time, there is still a world where Jalen Moore can be the right tackle going into this game, and you can still protect him while giving him valuable reps, and he can improve. That's the difference, right? Like when we make fun of Tom Compton is who he is. Jalen Moore is learning. This is his second game doing this, and he's only had about 3/4 of doing this. You can't expect it to be just flip over and he can do it. So that's my thing, is I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to watch him learn, take those bumps and bruises, but it can't be at the expense of winning the game, because right now this is the most important game of the season. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out on Sunday.
Exactly. And I've been in a couple of these situations personally, like with myself or with other players that I've played with on the offensive line, where you have guys that are naturally talented at what they do, natural athletes. They're good. They have good feet, good hands, good power, good strength, but they might not pick up on the blitz pickups as well, or they might not cue on some of the in-game adjustments as well as, say, the guy who doesn't have as high of a, I guess, like ceiling as like you would talk about Jalen Moore. Jalen Moore, we would say he has a pretty high ceiling, but he also has a really low floor right now. And what it's kind of looking like is Tom Compton's floor is unfortunately higher than Jalen. So what we're just going to have to see and monitor is what the coaches prefer. Do they prefer to continue to roll out the upside? And I think you laid out, and it's a really great point, of just letting him go out there and grow with him. And how are they going to get the experience, right? You got to actually go out and do it. You got to live it, and you got to go be a part of that. So there is an opportunity where Jalen Moore comes back out. Maybe they do the same exact thing. Give him the first half. If it's not going as planned, you know what you can fall back on with Tom Compton. So we'll see. We'll see. I actually kind of I kind of like what you laid out. I actually am not opposed to kind of growing and living with Jalen Moore, because if that because on the flip side, thinking long term, Mike McGlinchey's not walking through that door this year. Tom Compton and Jalen Moore are our right tackles. So to your point, and what you're kind of making me think about is like, hell, maybe you do ride with Jalen. You keep giving him that start. You keep giving him that opportunity to keep getting those live bullets and rep it. And like we were talking about, if it's not coming together, we know we have Tom Compton. We know what he's capable of. So because we do kind of have to look at this as like trial by fire in the sense, because if this team is a playoff team like we hope and dream of, and we have a huge matchup coming up against the Vikings, we're going to need Jalen Moore. We're going to need Jalen Moore throughout this entire process. So I like the points you made. You make really good points. What was the rest of your assessment of the rest of the offensive line, other than the right tackle position?
I mean, obviously, I don't have to talk about Trent Williams, okay? And for everybody who's upset about the Pro Bowl voting, who cares? That's not a ranking, right? Like that's just casual fans who are just punching boxes for whoever it is, right? Like that shouldn't
Right,
get you
right.
upset. That wasn't any sort of ranking, right? You can be upset that he's that far down, but come on, man, Trent's the best in the world. We know that he'll be an All Pro. Not really a big deal. I want to talk about Laken Tomlinson, because no one ever talks about Laken Tomlinson. And right now, two things that he's doing. He's absolutely not giving up any pressures, and he doesn't miss any games. What a find, obviously, and how good he's been. And nobody ever talks about it. He literally is stonewalling guys, and obviously it helps when you have the best in the world next to you. But Laken Tomlinson, I want to give you your flowers, man. He is playing so well, and he is one of the best guards in the league right now. Certainly in the NFC, right? And think about former first round pick, how the 49ers got him, and look at what he's doing. And it's just he's doing so well. I'm so happy for him. And the fact that you know how good alignment is playing by the fact that nobody mentions his name. And I think that that's the reason that nobody's really saying anything about Laken Tomlinson, because they're not diagramming up him pancaking somebody or just stonewalling somebody. It's just you never hear his name called because the person across from him is not beating him.
And Jordan Elliott from Niners Nation, our good buddy, posted this on Twitter earlier this week. But Laken Tomlinson didn't allow a single pressure on 25 pass blocking snaps against the Jaguars. That was actually the fourth time this season that Tomlinson allowed zero pressures in a game. I mean, that's pretty fire. Not only that, too, what I think I love the most, obviously, the video's been going around, but getting to see Lake and Tomlinson and Trent Williams together, because I try to emphasize that as much as possible when I talk about offensive line. It's a team within the team. Those five guys, they're a unit. They don't look at themselves as individuals. So that's why when we talk about, oh, just put that guy there, flip this guy over here, it's not that easy. These guys develop relationships, they develop a specific mindset, understanding that, like, if I'm Brunskill, I got Mac on my left and I got McGlinchey on my right. I know their strengths and weaknesses. I know his strengths and weaknesses. They know my strengths and weaknesses, and we work together as a unit, and we are successful as a unit. So with Lincoln Tomlinson, the emergence and continued Kyle Shanahan talked about it today. He said Trent Williams is probably playing the best football of his 11-year career at the age of 33. And we're kind of seeing it. It feels like transcend down the line. It's starting with like Lincoln Tomlinson. Alex Mack is playing better. Daniel Brunskill, in my opinion, had the best game of any of the offensive linemen against the Jags. We didn't really get the typical Trent Williams who's, cross chopping and slamming dudes and ragdolling dudes all over the place. It was more of a kind of, you know, it wasn't that game from Trent. But overall, the offensive line has been playing really well. So hopefully, as we continue to move forward, it's we just figure out that right tackle position, right? It's just figuring out how to work and move through that. So hopefully that comes to fruition. Um, is there anything on the offensive side that you wanted to touch on before we talk a little bit of defense?
I think we kind of touched on it all. Trey Sermon got a shot. He was okay.
What do you
Jimmy
think
Garoppolo,
about Trey Sermon?
I mean, it was okay. I mean, he hasn't played, obviously, so it's fine though. I mean, it looks like Elijah Mitchell's going to be back. Obviously, Jeff Wilson is who he is. He has the trust. They trust him in pass blocking. This game just there wasn't a lot of holes for everybody. It was just really Deebo that was able to do anything with this, so he was fine. For the people that wanted to see him play, there you go. You got a chance, so that helps. He got some reps, but yeah, I mean, it just lends the idea that, like, once Elijah Mitchell comes back, it'll be Elijah Mitchell and Jeff Wilson for the rest of the season, barring some injury. That's it, and Trey Sermon will just be there in terms of depth.
Yeah, and I understand people want to see Trey Sermon. He's a third round pick, right? And they traded up to get him, so there's a lot of excitement. They want to see that talent. They saw that talent at Ohio State, running behind our Prince. They know what he is. They know what he's capable of. We haven't seen it transfer to the NFL yet. We're still waiting in a sense. I think Sermon has all the skill set and the intangible to be successful, but I think it's going to come with the vision. So the vision is kind of what's holding him back, in my opinion. So hopefully, with time, that will show up. But honestly, like you said, Elijah Mitchell and Jeff Wilson, it sounds like it's going to be those two getting a lot of targets for the rest of the year. Let's switch gears really quickly to the defensive side. Um, Talk to me about what did you see from Jaquiski Tart in his return, and how did he play and everything he did, and as well as the safe. Let's talk about the safeties in general.
Well, he was the only one who committed a penalty in this game, but that was at the end of the game. It was a pass interference. I mean, there's not really too much that you can really draw away from this game because let's just face it, the Jaguars were putrid on offense in this game. They just were. Like, they had nothing really
Mhm.
going. There was no real threat down the field, anything like that. They really couldn't get the ball moving. James Robinson scores a garbage time touchdown, but for the large part of this game, this might as well have been a shutout. So it's really not too much to take away from what they've done because they didn't really get tested that much, in my opinion.
Mhm.
But you're going to need that this week. It's good to see him get back into that spot because while there is excitement about Hufanga, and I'm not trying to douse that fire, it's good to see that the two trusted guys who can communicate on the back end and are the smartest back there are able to be back there, especially in this week that you're going to need it. That's why I'm not as concerned with the secondary as many people are. I'm not concerned with the secondary as a whole. I'm concerned with matchups in the secondary. Like if Justin Jefferson gets out there on Josh Norman for one-on-ones, that scares me. It's not that I'm scared of, the secondary being beat as a whole by these guys, but I'm just talking about one or two matchups there. That's it. Emmanuel Mosley's been great. But in terms of what they brought what they usually bring, solid play and the communication and the stuff that you don't see that doesn't show up in box scores. So it's important that he gets those reps. It's important that that precedent is laid that he's still the man as strong safety. He's going to be the starter out there. And there will be variations with three safeties, and that's good. You get your best players on the field. You put Ufanga in spots where he made a great tackle on Trevor Lawrence, where, again, closer to the line of scrimmage, just go like a missile and just go tackle. Like, don't think, play on instinct. Don't get put in bad spots. And that's what they bring is they're able to use Ufanga in spots and put him in spots for him to be successful. So it was good to see him back. Good to see him get through the game healthy, and they're going to need all the help they can get in the secondary, and that includes both of those guys because this test that's coming next week is their biggest test.
I agree too. I really like the role of, again, keeping Jaquiski Tartt and Jimmy Ward starting at safety. If you want to, have different types of packages or whatever, I really do believe that, again, it's kind of similar to what we've talked about kind of the offensive line. There's a continuity. There is a understanding of working together that I think goes really far, especially with Jimmy Ward and Jaquiski Tartt. I mean, those guys were they were high school teammates, weren't they? Like those guys go back.
They
So
go back, yeah. They played high school together, like they know each other that well. Like
that means a lot in my opinion. I think that human element of football is special, and when you get those types of people on the field together, special things can come from that. So I like the ability of those two to be out there. Talanoa Hufanga, like the scouting report for me is he's kind of a box player. So that it actually fits the mold. I know Jaquiski Tartt is a bit of a box player, but he's versatile in the sense that he can play coverage too. But I think I'd rather have Jaquiski Tartt in coverage at this point than Talanoa. Not a knock against Talanoa. But I just like keeping everything in front of Talanoa. I think that's the best thing for the defense. And then you have your last line of defense and Jaquiski Tartt and Jimmy Ward. And I think that might be the recipe for continued success. But we'll see. They weren't able to really run the ball. They weren't really able to do much of anything. What do you give a lot of the success that the 49ers had on defense against the Jags? Was that just a rookie quarterback, or is that Bosa just creating havoc? What was your thoughts?
I mean, it's Urban Meyer, that uninspired offense. Trevor really didn't have a shot because Nick Bosa was all over the field. When you get a turnover with Josh Norman and Fred Warner, it's just everything was against them in this game. Unfortunately, Jamal Agnew gets injured in this game. I felt terrible for him because he was having a breakout year.
Yeah, he
But
was.
yeah, I mean, it's just as much as the offense. I mean, the offense just not being good and the defense just being solid. And that's just it is what it is. And that's not really the offense that you really saw the prior. Well, I should take that back. They scored 9 points and won the game against the Bills, and then they had 17, I think, the week after against Indianapolis. But yeah, I mean, that's what everybody who's trying to douse this fire with, oh, it's the Jaguars. Well, that's what good teams do. They put teams away right away that should be, and they don't let them hang around at all. And I think that that's something that you should take away from this. It's less about the opponent and what you do with the opponent. You don't play down to them. You don't play up. You play your game and you dominate, and it lays where it lays at the end. And that's what it should be. So it's a little bit of the fact that the Jaguars are just not a very good football team. They're not coached well. They're not prepared well. And Nick Bosa is insane. And, when that offense isn't able to sustain drives, it puts that defense in such a bad spot where they were gassed, man, like with how much the 49ers were on the field. So it all just went the 49ers way in this one. And, you needed a win like this because it is the Jaguars. And you walked out of this game relatively healthy going into this battle. So it was everything went right in this game. So I would give it both, the offense being bad and the defense just being solid.
And what do you think the 49ers are going to give the Vikings? What kind of performance do you think we're going to see? Obviously, we have some real weapons showing up on the offensive side of the ball for the Vikings, specifically Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen on the outside. Talk to me about some of the cornerback matchups. What are your feelings? How do you think Is there a way to manipulate coverage? Like, what are your thoughts on how to slow these guys down? Because I know you're locked in from a fantasy standpoint. You know exactly how these guys go about getting the production. How do we stop the production?
Well, no disrespect to Josh Norman, but you're gonna need help if you're out there on Justin Jefferson. But here's the problem: is the Vikings move both of those guys around, and the 49ers are not going to send one guy to shadow the other. In a perfect world, I would love Emmanuel Mosley to shadow Justin Jefferson, and I'll take my shots and I'll take my chances there, and I'll leave Norman on Thielen because let's just face it, Adam Thielen wins with savvy route running, understanding leverage, and using your body against you. Justin Jefferson is a freak. He's fast and he knows all of those routes and he can move in ways that you have to be twitchy to be able to stay with him. Okay. Mosley fits that a little bit more than Josh Norman does. But this is what Ward and Tart are going to have to do is they're going to have to kind of shade themselves a little bit over if if the matchup shows itself, right? Obviously, Dalvin Cook out of the backfield, they're going to try to get him the ball on screens. That's something that they like to do. They like to employ. But if the 49ers pass rush can't get there and Kirk Cousins is allowed to sit back there, I don't know many corners that can cover Justin Jefferson. I mean, Justin Jefferson literally just baked Jair Alexander and Kevin King and every single cornerback in his way this past game. And it really is going to come down to getting in Kirk Cousins' face, trying to limit that run game, because once that run game starts to get going, the play action becomes a problem. And that's where Kirk Cousins excels. And Kirk Cousins is having a masterful year right now, 21 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. I don't know if anybody knows that stat. That is insane right now. And much of that, honestly, because I was looking it up, is actually straight dropbacks. He's actually playing very well this year. So the 49ers, if they're not able to get pass rush and they're not able to get in Kirk Cousins' face, and Matthew Stafford had a lot of time. He just didn't have a good game, and neither did anybody else on that Rams team. But if you give Kirk Cousins that time with those receivers and the way they've been clicking lately, it's going to get a little bit hairy. Somehow the Vikings went from Stephon Diggs to Justin Jefferson, and I'll never have any idea how they allowed that to happen. It's not necessarily an upgrade yet, but I think next year you can start looking at it like, man, this is a bit of an upgrade, because that's how highly I think of Stephon Diggs. But, man, they are very close to upgrading at this point.
I mean, there was no production drop off at all. It's like they didn't even skip a beat. It was like, oh, here's Stephon Diggs, probably one of the premier route runners in this league. Oh, here's Justin Jefferson. It looks like the same guy wearing a different jersey, damn near. Maybe even a little bit more upside, kind of like what you talked about. So I agree. It's going to be a really tough sledding for this 49ers team, especially if they're relying on guys like Josh Norman to somehow slow down these wide receivers. I'm looking at it a lot from like a trench standpoint, and it kind of feels like that on both sides, because not only do they have great weapons on the outside in the receivers that we talked about, but they have Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook is no slouch. Dalvin Cook is a hard downhill runner with great vision and speed to back it up. Do you kind of, and you've talked about Kirk Cousins and giving him time in the world. So are you kind of like transitioning and funneling that into the trenches, really having to step up this game and make it hard for them to run and throw by creating pressure and just mudding up running lanes?
Yeah, that's the only concern that you really have with this 49ers defense is their run defense, because the pass defense is ranked pretty highly, and a lot of the yards that they have been giving up had to do with penalties, and that has kind of cleaned itself up the last few weeks, so maybe they've turned the corner in that way. But if Dalvin Cook's allowed to get going and he's gashing you and you start to get sucked in with that play action, Kirk Cousins is going to make you pay, man, and that's the problem. So the focus really should be make them as one-dimensional as possible. Put them in positions where they're in 3rd and long. Make them make throws that are tougher, obviously. But if you're at 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1, and they still have that threat of the run, or they can hit you with a play action and Kirk's allowed to bootleg out and Justin Jefferson's running free, that's when things get a little bit hairy. So the focus needs to be on Dalvin Cook. That's why I think that Azeez Al-Shaair is so important in this game, and that's why he necessarily won't be off the field, because of what he gives in run defense, and he understands his gaps. He's a thumper, and you need that sort of physicality, and it needs to trickle down to everybody. So if you're able to control the run game and keep them away from that, put them in 3rd and long, and then let the pass rush get there. If Dee Ford's allowed to be on the field and he's able to get to the pressure, that's the way that the 49ers have to win this game. And I know that sounds cliche. None of that stuff is game-breaking or big brain stuff or anything like that, but sometimes it is as simple as that, especially when you know what they want to do, and especially lately, Kirk Cousins has been pushing the ball downfield. He has. And that's the thing that kind of scares me a little bit is, hey, Jacksonville can't do it. The Rams tried to do it, but they were just out of sorts. But if you're allowing him to sit back there and let those routes develop, man, he's going to take those shots, and he hasn't been off that much this year. Maybe that shows itself in this game. Maybe it would have been cool that they flexed this game to a night game or a Monday night game, because we know Kirk's record in prime time. But that's the problem, right? That's what I fear is this might be the game that the 49ers have to open up that offense a little bit more and be a little bit more explosive, because you might not be able to control the clock as well. But I still have faith that what they've been doing is the blueprint, and they'll still be able to stick to that somewhat. I just don't know if you can run the ball to the tune of 40 times, keeping them on the sideline that much.
Yeah, so we might have to be looking at Jimmy Garoppolo maybe a little bit more, because we have to imagine that the defense is going to come out and really try to limit that, because clearly, like you pointed to, that's the recipe for our success right now is these chunk yards. And we're not even talking about totally explosive plays either. It's just like death by 1,000 paper cuts at this point. And then eventually the seas will open up and you'll get a big hitter from Deebo Samuel or what have you. Do you think there's going to be an opportunity for Jimmy Garoppolo to kind of shoulder more of the load in this particular matchup? Because we do know that it could turn into a shootout. It could turn into a situation where, hey, Justin Jefferson does Justin Jefferson things. Thielen does Thielen things, catching fades over the top of DBs, where it's completely well covered, just got great hands. Like, we know that these guys can make plays on the other side. So do you think that Jimmy Garoppolo might have to be basically, we might have to look at Jimmy Garoppolo a little bit more than maybe we have in the past this year?
I think so too, and so does Vegas. And I know that obviously Vegas is not the end all be all, but the implied total right now, the over under is, I believe it's 48 and a half, if it's not 49 and a half. So they're expecting at least 50 points in this game. That's 25 and 25. I could see that easily happening in this game. So yes, it is going to be that. The problem is this: Jimmy Garoppolo has been playing great, but when you limit the amount of throws, is you're mitigating the risk, and you're closing it down with those no throws or those interceptions, right? When you start to get into that 30, 35, 40 attempts, that's when chances start to pile up, that maybe there's going to be one of those throws that either bounces off somebody's hands, or you throw it right to somebody or something like that. But yes, I do think this game is going to be a little bit more of a shootout than people think it is. The 49ers are going to have to score points. And the one thing that I'll say about this is this is what's in the 49ers' favor. The Vikings run defense is not that good at this point. It really isn't. And, I talked about it earlier. Obviously, Griffin's not going to play in this game. Daniil Hunter's out for the year. They're missing other people on their defensive line. But their linebackers are actually a little bit better in coverage. We know the dreaded Eric
Mhm.
Kendricks, the underneath interceptions. We know that and everything as well too. But
Yep.
but the 49ers still can stick to the run game. I just don't know if you're going to get to a 40 plateau again, because I don't think that's 30 is the magic number. If you can get it to 30 and you keep Jimmy Garoppolo in that 25 to 30 pass attempt window, you should be good. I think that's a recipe for success, and that would be like it. I mean, that's not a magic number. It's not an end all be all. But if you tell me at the end of the game that the 49ers are going to run the ball 33 times, Jimmy Garoppolo threw it 28 times, they probably won the game. That's what I would say. And that's only because they never really tip the scales either one way or the other. If they tip the scales running the ball, that means the game's over. But if they tip the scales passing the ball, that's when you think that things can go wrong a little bit. So I think that's where you want to get away from that.
Absolutely. We still want to see that balanced attack. We still think, like you alluded to, there's still an extra gear we can reach. We're kind of stuck in that fourth gear. Maybe there's an opportunity to hit it a fifth, drop into the sixth still, but we're not going to like really put that, really focus on that at the basically putting the rest of our game plan at a disadvantage. We still want them to be very even, and we still want to see a good balance between rushing and passing, because to your point, if the 49ers are passing the ball like 60%, 65% of the time, it's probably not the recipe for success. So hopefully that's not what it comes down to. But if it does, it'd be a great opportunity for Jimmy Garoppolo to take another step forward, kind of in his progressions this year, I guess you could say. So we'll see. It's a matchup that has a lot of I don't know, it kind of feels like, because you go back to the 2019 year, Remember that? Remember the narrative that spun off that 2019 game about Jimmy Garoppolo because he only passed it 8 times and all of that. It feels like it's almost coming full circle in the sense because Kirk Cousins playing lights out. We all know the situation between Kyle Shanahan and Kirk Cousins, and that's why they passed on Deshaun. Like, oh, we could dig up all kinds of stuff that we've been talking about for the better part of 9 months. But it feels like it's all kind of coming full circle with a huge game this Sunday. So, what are maybe some bold predictions that you have, or maybe because I know Luke's got one. He's got E-Man gets his first interception versus Kirk, who doesn't throw them.
You mentioned
I
have
think
4.
Yeah, it should 4. Because I think he went on to say, like, if you get it, you're gonna have a better chance getting the momentum and the dub and all that good stuff. But do you have any kind of bold predictions or just hammering home specific keys for the team overall to make it 3 in a row, something they haven't done all year?
I think that Brandon Ayuk is going to be the leading receiver in this game, and he's going to be the one who has the most catches and yards in this game. You can attack this defense at their corner position. Dantzler, Mackenzie Alexander in the slot. I think that Ayuk is ascending, and it's on the film. You know that catch that he made on a throw where Jimmy Garoppolo throws to the far right hash. He makes the catch, he takes the hit, and he keeps going. Scores a touchdown. He
So
looks
good.
he looks every bit the part, man. And I think that this is the game that he's going to show up because I think that the Vikings are going to try their damnedest to take Deebo away. I think Deebo's going to have a fine game. Don't get it twisted. He probably scores a touchdown in this game. But at the same time, I just like Ayuk's progression. So my bold prediction is that he's going to have the most catches and yards in this game out of all of the pass catchers for the 49ers.
I love your bold prediction because I just sacrificed the future of one of my dynasty teams to ensure that I
Saw
could
that.
get Brandon Ayuk on the squad.
Saw that.
I'm going down with the ship. I don't care. I'm throwing everything I can. I've been working on that Ayuk trade for months. I almost got him at his lowest value, and that would have been the biggest home run. I almost got Ayuk for a second round pick in dynasty, which would have been great, but I'm in win now mode, man. I'm 9-2. I'm trying to win.
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to stack dubs. So I don't care about those picks right now. So I love the bold prediction. I really hope that Brandon Ayuk comes out and balls out. I also wouldn't mind seeing a phenomenal signature Fred Warner game. Just Fred Warner flying around, doing all Fred Warner things. Again, Fred Warner's had a bit of a slower year than he probably would have liked to have had. So it would be great to see Fred Warner come out and have one of those signature games, maybe interception, a forced fumble, one of those things from Fred Warner to, again, when your leaders are playing well, it kind of raises the spirits of everyone on the unit. Like it kind of feels like, oh, like if our alpha of all these alphas is playing well, kind of gets you going, gets your juices flowing in the right direction. So I'd love to see Fred Warner come out and ball and do all that good stuff. But before we wrap it up, Jason, Thanksgiving's tomorrow. And it's a fantastic holiday. We get to spend time with our family. We get to eat tons of food. I'm so happy about that. I'm wait. I'm gonna get a bib or something. I'm ready. I'm ready to go to town. So, with that being said, let's end it on this question. Like, if we had a Thanksgiving side dishes draft, who's going number one overall for Jason Aponte?
So here's the thing. I'm Puerto Rican. Our Thanksgiving is different. And
Which is
we don't
great.
we don't have stuffing. We don't have cranberry sauce. Nobody walks in the house with cranberry sauce. Like, so this one's a little weird for me, right?
I
We
love.
don't cook turkey.
Yep.
We don't
Yep.
cook turkey.
So what does your spread look like?
So it's pernil, which is pork, and it is a portion of it that is very crispy. It's amazing. It's rice and beans. It's something that's called pasteles. It's empanadas. It's all of these things that are there that are amazing. The one thing that I say that and this is bland and it's very easy, but this is something that's definitely going to be on the table no matter what culture. Mashed potatoes is fire. That's something that's always going to be there on the table as well. So mashed potatoes has to be on there as well. But the whole oh, I don't like stuffing. I don't like cranberry sauce. Nobody brings that to my house. No one brings that. No one makes that. That has never been made in my house in my 37 years of being on this earth. Never once been made ever. So
I
the one
love it.
the one thing I will not stand for is this apple pie slander. And I just do not understand what it is and what is the problem. And how apple pie is as solid of a dessert as there is has all of a sudden gotten disrespected so much. I don't get it. What is wrong with apple pie? I'll never understand it. What is wrong with heating up apple pie and throwing a piece of ice cream on it? And it's enjoying. It's enjoying. I don't get it, man. Just enjoy it, man. Sheesh. Apple pie, man.
How can you slander apple pie? I mean, I get it if it's not your favorite, but how can you slander it? It's like, just to me, it's one of those things. Like, yeah, it's the American dessert, whatever. It's like the American like pie is like symbolic of a lot of different things for American culture. But like, at the end of the day, who doesn't like pie? Who doesn't like pie crust? Who doesn't like the feeling that I'm with
The
you
crust is
there?
the best part. What the heck, man?
That's
Like,
what I'm saying. I'm with you there. I don't understand that. So mashed potatoes, your go-to? That's the one.
yeah,
Is that what you
so
pick?
that's the one. That's the one that I would say across all cultures that everybody's gonna have no matter what. So I would say
Okay,
that.
okay. I like that.
And mac and cheese is good too. Like, there's no problem with that. Mac and cheese is good every day though. That's not Thanksgiving only, right?
Who
Like, that isn't.
slandered mac and cheese recently?
People
Matthew
have,
Judon. Matthew
yeah,
Judon,
and
DN for the
and Mac Jones
Patriots.
and Mac Jones slandered
Eh,
apple pie, and that's why you're not pick number 3, buddy. We don't need you over here, okay?
That's why Mayo Mac. That's why Mayo Mac is Mayo Mac. He doesn't even like. He doesn't even like apple pie. What are we
What,
talking about, bro? Like apple pie? Come on, Mayo Mac. What are we doing?
man?
Sheesh. All right. Well, anyways, I thought it was a great, appropriate question to end our segment today. Jason, tell the people before we break again where to get more Jason Aponte content, because trust me, you can't get enough of this man.
Appreciate that, man. And before I do all that, man, I want to say it's the holidays. Enjoy your time with your family. Hold your people close. Send text messages. Call people. Reach out to them. It's been a rough few years with everything going on in the world. People haven't been able to be as close as possible, and now it's starting to clear up a little bit more. Hold your people close. Never. The only day that is guaranteed is the day in front of you. Make sure that you tell the people you love and you hold dear to your heart that you love them, and tell them that you're thankful for them. So just that's what I wanted to say. But as far as everything else, you can find me on Twitter at Jason Aponte 2103 and Jason Aponte on YouTube. Enjoy your football tomorrow. That's the best part about, I think, Thanksgiving, right? You get to sit down, at least on my portion of the country. It's noon. You get an adult beverage. You get to sit down, and it's a full day of football. Would have been better if my Prince was starting. Thanks a lot, Baltimore. You ruined that
Damn
for
it,
me or whatever.
Baltimore, you son of a.
Yeah, but free fantasy advice: if you have Darnell Mooney on any of your teams, start that man immediately,
To the
please.
moon.
61% target share or something like that. He has 16
Yeah.
targets last week. You're like, please thank me later for that. But yeah, that's where you'll find me. Enjoy your time with your family. Enjoy your football, Brad. This is great as always. Love to you and your family as well. Enjoy your holiday because you deserve it. You're one of the hardest working people out here. You
Oh my
deserve to take the
gosh.
whole day off, man. Just watch your game. Watch your game, and we'll be right back at it on Friday. No, there's no other days off. There's just a Thanksgiving day off.
Yeah, we get Thanksgiving off, and we're gonna absolutely take advantage of it. But Jason, absolutely same sentiments back to you and your family. I hope you guys enjoy your time together. I didn't think about the East Coast thing, man. You guys get all day to just kind of vibe out and chill. We kind of gotta wait a little bit, so that's dope. But I'm gonna be eating. I'm gonna be grubbing, and I'm just like all of you. So I'm really, really excited for that, as you guys know. So I'm excited for Thanksgiving, excited for the games, and I'm excited for the game this weekend against the Vikings. It's a big one. It's a big one. I think you talked about it. It's like kind of like our first in-season playoff game. There have been a
Definitely.
lot of must-win games, but because of pure just desperation, this is actually like we're playing for something now. So really, really excited. Jason, thank you so much as always for joining me. Love the McKinnon jersey, by the way. As we that is not a
Let's
Trey Sermon
go.
jersey.
It's not a Trey Sermon jersey. Let's
He made me
go.
so happy bringing that thing on, brought a real smile to my face. So, Jason, I love it as always. And we will pick this back up next Wednesday. You guys know the vibes. Be here next Wednesday. Sourdough Squad. Appreciate you all. You guys have a phenomenal Thanksgiving.